It's Gaz, and welcome back to another Warframe video. So, Xaku Prime is released, and we've got a ton of Xaku builds in the video today. There's pretty much 6.5 Xaku builds in this video, so I'll make sure I put timestamps down below if you want to see each of the individual builds. We'll also be covering how to play Xaku briefly, and also some good weapons and synergies for Xaku as well, because we've got lots of synergies with Xaku in 2024 Warframe. Before we get into this stuff, though, make sure you sub this channel. We do daily Warframe video uploads, build videos, discussion videos, all that kind of stuff in the right place for Warframe content. And yeah, we'll have the big Archon triple Tau Shard alert starting tomorrow if we want to get 3 Archon Tau Shards guaranteed. Okay, so let's go over what Xaku's abilities do at first. Keep in mind, I did helmet off Xaku's 3 for the time being. But as far as what Xaku does, quick crash course, passive makes you take less damage from AoE, so like rocket launchers basically, and also you have a chance to dodge gunfire from non-rocket launchers, which that evasion chance is increased in your 4th ability form, okay? First ability, Xata's Whisper. You cast this buff, and it gives additional, actually gives an extra hit of void damage on all your weapon attacks. So that means it's kind of like similar to Saren's Toxic Lash. So if I fire my gun right now, okay, so you see some blast procs on there and some puncture procs. If I cast Xata's Whisper, now I'm getting void procs and I'm getting my blast procs and stuff like that. And also, you might notice the bullets of my gun are flying around in that bubble from the void proc. You can do some pretty funny stuff with this once you, put some weapon synergies in here. And we'll show a couple weapon synergies today. But yeah, it's a very powerful gun, or very powerful gun buff. But the issue with this is actually that void bubble. When you're in a full squad, that void bubble, or even if you're in a public personal squad, that void bubble can mess up your shots and your teammates' shots for that matter. That bubble makes your bullets disappear sometimes. So just be aware of that if you are playing Xaku with Xata's Whisper in a full squad, okay? We got to the second ability. This one's the one a lot of people are aware of, Grasp of Loke. You steal the guns of enemies up to a certain amount that scales with range. So the more range you have, the more guns you can steal. And those guns will shoot at enemies with void damage. It's fake void damage, so it won't really work on a Eidolon or something like that. Also, that's the same with Xata's Whisper. Xata's Whisper does not work on Eidolon fights, unfortunately. But yeah, so this one also scales enemy level. So the higher level enemies they will basically scale the damage with them. So what we do is we basically take all the enemies' guns, and it will shoot at them. So this is going to be scaling with their level. And of course, you can put on viral procs with things like the Panzer Vila, or you can armor strip them with helmet abilities or Xaku's base abilities to make them take more damage. And additionally, your 4th ability also debuffs them for more void damage too, which makes it pretty easy to shred them once everything's said and done. Keep in mind that these might look like guns, but they're not actually guns as far as the game's code is concerned. They're just abilities that aren't guns. So Xata's Whisper does not buff your void guns. Now for the 3rd ability, we have to actually switch builds because this build has the 3rd ability removed. But the 3rd ability of Xaku is very, very strong. So let's go over to the Nourish build. We have a lot of builds to cover today, so yeah. So Xaku's 3rd ability is called the Loss. It's actually 3 different abilities all in one. And they're very, very powerful abilities that get underrated quite often, in my opinion. So the ability that people usually remember from the Lost is called Gaze. Looks like the icon is not actually open, so I have to do this off of memory now. So the ability Accuse is an AoE mind control. It's supposed to have a little UI thing here that rotates, but it's not working right now. So AoE mind control with Accuse. Gaze is the one that grabs one enemy with a minimum of 200% power strength. You will AoE armor strip, and that makes it very easy to kill them, especially if you have things like Nourish giving you viral damage. And the 3rd ability of the Lost is the Laser Beam, whatever the ability of the Laser Beam is called. This Laser Beam is extremely underrated. Did you know this Laser Beam can stun Demolist in Disruption missions? Well, it can, so I highly recommend that you use the Laser Beam in Disruption to stun the Demolist and then easily kill them. What just viral procced me there? That was kind of weird. Maybe I guess I mind controlled my cat or something, and then, well, let's ignore that. It's a good ability, I swear, okay? And it does not normally just viral proc and kill you. And for the final ability of Xaku, oh, look, the rotating thing works now. So yeah, Gaze is the armor strip that locks enemy down. Deny is the AoE, actually, Deny is the laser beam that can hit pretty good damage, but also can stun Demolist and unique units. And Accuse is the AoE mind control that works on some enemies that probably shouldn't work on. Then that all brings it together with the 4th ability of Xaku called the Vast Untime. This is where you basically enter skeleton form. You might notice I'm in perma-skeleton form right now. We'll show you can do that in the current patch later. So, The thing about the Vast Untime is it pauses the ability timers of your active abilities that are non-helmet abilities. So if I put Accuse, or if I put Gaze on this enemy, it is a 30-second duration with this build. Now I use Grasp of Loak to steal their guns. It lasts for 22 seconds. I cast the Vast Untime. I slow nearby enemies, and the timers of my active abilities that are non-helmet are also paused. Okay, that's the big thing about Xaku. Make sure you always get your 4th ability active, pretty much. So as you can also see, the Nourish timer is still going down. So helmet abilities don't count for that ability pause, okay? Now we've established how Xaku works. Let's get into the 6 different Xaku builds we've got today as far as what you can expect and what I'd recommend to you. Okay, so the first one here is Ophanim Eyes. It's the helmet ability of Jade, and we've replaced the 3rd ability, the Lost, from Xaku. Why have I replaced the Lost from Xaku for this ability? It's mainly because I want to try something new, but also because this is a mobile armor strip, unlike the Lost, which requires you to recast it when you go to a new area. So the way that Jade's helmet ability works, Ophanim Eyes, while you're looking at enemies, they will lose armor and shields per second, which scales with power strength. With the amount of power strength we stack up to today, you can armor strip an enemy in less than 3 seconds, okay? So, but you need to stack all the power strength to do that. The more power strength, the better. The old build for Terrify still works, but keep in mind that Terrify does not work on Acolytes, okay? Ophanim Eyes does work on Acolytes, and we show some of the companions I'd recommend today. You might actually like how this one works. Now, getting some gameplay footage before we show the companions and all that. Here we are in Survival. So as we look at enemies, you see like that red like flashlight basically. Wherever I'm looking in that red flashlight, enemies are slowed, armor stripped, shield stripped, and also fire procced per second too. So it makes it really easy because also your void guns will be shooting at those enemies too, and the less armor they have, the easier they're to kill for the void guns, and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty easy, like, chill build. When we use the Huraz Kubrow, which, if you watched my videos from a couple weeks ago, Buck, the invisible dog, he can make you perma-invisible as Xaku, so that's great. And also, Buck can give you double loot, unlike the Shade Sentinel, which is nowhere near as good as Buck, unfortunately. But yeah, you can use weapons too. Like, Xaku is quite a flexible frame, and just even with the 6 build I'm showing you today, guys, there are more builds for Xaku out there. You could do, like, for example, I don't have a Ensnare build or a Resonator build. If you want more CC-focused gameplay, you could do other helmets that are not my damage-focused helmets today. Okay, so Ophanim Eyes, pretty good. Pretty decent against Acolytes too, so we can find an Acolyte here. Alright, Acolyte dead. Oh, that was Limbo. Okay, here's the thing about Xaku, it's not good. Xaku hates nullifiers because Xaku is very ability-focused. So when you get thrown into a nullifier bubble or get nullified by the Limbo Acolyte, you have to recast all your stuff, which is kind of annoying. Additionally, to get the most power strength possible, you can do things like Bolt Augmented to get ability power strength on kill. We've also got the Grimoire right here. Now, it was not used in the footage, but it can help you because the more power strength you have for Ophanim Eyes, the more armor strip per second you get. So with the Grimoire Vom Invocation, you get 60% power strength if you hit 15 enemies with the shot. And with Seeker giving punch through, you can actually hit multiple enemies. There is a glitch in Warframe right now, guys, that says you cannot get punched through on certain weapons. Like the Trumna Prime, for example, it says you can't get punched through on that. That's a lie. The Grimoire says you can't get punched through on that. That's a lie. Punch through does work on the Grimoire and the Trumna. So our big thing here, though, is extra power strength. And why not secondary fortify for a little bit of overguard, too. So we use that, and we also use Madurai Focus Tree to get a total of 100% extra power strength. So with all this stuff stacked up, I think it's like 40-something% armor strip per second with Ophanim Eyes, which is pretty nice. Like, that's going to take an enemy's armor out in about like 3-ish seconds, I think. And if you don't do that, it's about 4 seconds, which is pretty unfortunate. Now, for companions on Xaku and for builds in general, the 2 main ones I recommend to you is to be Panzerable Pathyla. So this one's going to put Viral Procs enemies. Viral Procs make your guns do more damage, which is really nice. And also, we can also use the Panzerable Pathyla's abilities with Shocking Claws to proc Archon Stretch or some extra energy regen. I don't think I have that in the video, but yeah, that is definitely something you could try out. So Panzerable Pathyla, great because of the Viral Procs and Viral Quills. The other really good companion is going to be the Invisible Kubrow Buck. So the Huraz Kubrow, I think it's called. Yeah, Huraz Kubrow. So this ability stock lets you stay invisible while you are using your void guns, okay? So for this the main build I'm showing you right now, this one lets you armor strip and be invisible, or armor strip and DPS while invisible, and enemies will not fight back, basically, because they don't know where you are, so really good stuff there. As you can see, we're not fully stacked up, but once we are, enemies are going to die relatively fast. Now, we have a build that can kill faster than this later in the video, but for right now, this is a nice chill one for everyday content. Also, Buck can do some pretty serious damage too. I'd recommend checking out Buck's full video if you want to see the full dog stats, or the full dog loadout, because I'm not using a stat stick right now. All right, that's enough on the first build. Let's go on to the second build. But before we go into that, the shards I'm going to recommend on Xaku, at least the ones I'm using on Xaku, 1 purple Tau Forge Violet shard for energy and health, and 1 casting speed Tau shard for making the abilities cast faster. I don't blame you if you put on 2, but remember, Madurai Focus Tree does have a cast speed increasing perk on it as well. And the last 3 are Power Strength shards. The more Power Strength, the better on some of these builds nowadays on Xaku. Because Xaku, another thing as well, Xaku got kind of nerfed, not on purpose though, because in the Jade Shadows update, basically the enemy's overall HP got buffed. But let's move on to the next. And also, Xaku's guns didn't get buffed in the update, so we have to make do with what we got by increasing our damage a lot. Now, how do you increase your damage a lot with Xaku? Well, you could use Roar. You could try out this weird thing that I was messing with the other day. It's going to be Hydroid's Helminth with the Viral Tempest Augment. So, we basically cast Hydroid's Viral Tempest ability from the Helminth system, and it makes enemies take Viral procs and Corrosive procs. Additionally, you can use Emerald Archon shards that give increased ability damage to Corrosive proc enemies to make it kind of like a little mini Roar. By the way, I don't have this build active anymore. This build requires a lot of specific things I wouldn't recommend. I'd say just, if you want to do a build like this, just use Roar instead, which I will show you here in a little bit. But yeah, enemies are procced up. The issue with Viral Tempest, though, is that you have to cast the ability a lot. So I'm not recommending, this is like the half build here. This one's not going to be really what I'd recommend. But if you do want to do that, put on Emerald Archon shards for ability damage to enemies affected by Corrosive. I did have 1 Corrosive stack increaser too, but I wouldn't really recommend that. But the big thing you need is Tempest Barrage from Hydroid, and make sure you got the Viral Tempest Augment mod. Range also helps, but yeah, again, this build is not going to be... This is before I also Umber Form. I Umber Form on Xaku after this, but yeah, it's a build you could run. It's not a build that I'm going to run, though, but it is somewhat fun if you want to be a little bit more unique. Now, the build that replaced this build, the Hydroid Tempest Barrage build, is the Roar build. So if we take a look at what we got now, after the Hydroid build was basically scrapped, here we are with the Roar build. So Roar from Rhino, our abilities scale with enemy level, so that we can increase the damage they do while also scaling with enemy level. It makes it a lot easier to kill these high-level enemies. So again, the more strength, the better. With new Xaku builds, the more strength, the better. That's why the old build is a little bit easier to make, the Terrify build, but it's not going to be as quick at killing stuff as a build like this is. And the more range you have, the more guns you get, but I don't want to put on Augur Reach, to be honest. We got 14 guns, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and show us how this works in the sim here. Alright, so we got Roar from Rhino, and we also got our Invisible Dog equipped, technically. Now that we did not remove Xaku's 3, we have to use Gaze to remove enemy armor if we do want to do that, but we're fine with that because we have over 200% power strength to achieve that. Alright, so the more strength, the better. So let's go ahead and use our Madurai Double Dash and use our Grimoire for another 100% power strength. So with all that stuff procced up, we have 115% Roar, and we can also fully armor strip very, very quickly on these guys. And looks like Buck killed them, but yeah, we can kill them very, very fast with a build like this, because we can also debuff them. So our guns are doing, what, 139k? 139k without any viral proc. So if you had a Panzer with a Phyla, it would double the damage, and they would be getting, 200k plus. These guys are technically already dead. As you can see, I walk through them, but they're so slowed down, it's hard to tell what's actually happening. So yeah, this one's very good for killing stuff quickly. But just keep in mind that since Xata's Whisper ability, it counts as a damage buff, you could not have Xata's Whisper and Roar. But if you do run the Nourish build, you could have Nourish and Xata's Whisper technically at the same time. But you probably don't, because then you'd have no armor strip in that build. So as far as the difference between this build and the previous build, we're just going for more power strength, basically. Actually, they might be the exact same mods. Okay, a little bit more range and open them eyes. But the thing about Xaku is that I need a little bit of continuity in here, because if you're recasting Roar, how long would the Roar duration be if I took this off? Do you really want to have to recast Roar every 21 seconds? I don't, so I put a continuity mod in there, so I have to recast Roar every 38 seconds, which is a lot less annoying than 21 seconds. So up to personal preference. If you're okay with casting the ability over and over again, feel free. But also keep in mind too that with the Brief Respite mod, we can restore our shields, which is basically our survivability. Enough of that. Let's move on to the Nourish build here. And the Nourish build is going to be very similar to the previous ones, but we don't need Energize with Nourish. Now, we've got Catalyzing Shields here. This is so we can Shield Gate from Nourish, but if you take that off, you can still Shield Gate if you use the Vast Untime with the mods we have on our Tome, okay? So with Nourish, this is basically a build for disruptions and stuff. We are going to be buffing our weapons with Nourish, and we're going to be CCing Demolist with the Laser Beam of the Lost. and also using our Void Guns on viral proc enemies to kill them, hopefully pretty quick. So yeah, pretty straightforward stuff here. Multi-efficiency gives you more duration, even though it's called multi-efficiency, which is kind of goofy. And then this one is just basically going to be for, every day just chilling, okay? I've got my Dara Vandal equipped right now. This one is definitely less ability focused compared to the Roar build, but it still gets the job done. And also, don't forget to, if you do mind control these enemies, that's the wrong ability. It's hard to remember which one's which. Okay, so we've mind controlled them. Now we cast Nourish. They should have viral on their guns now, which means we can actually AoE viral proc relatively easily here. See all those viral procs going out? If you have an enemy that is mind controlled by what's it called, Qs, they will AoE viral proc if they get damaged, which makes it really, really easy to get maximum viral proc. So pretty fun stuff there. We throw in an armor strip as well, and they will basically just die for being shot at. So very, very strong stuff there. And of course, you can just play normal Xaku stuff the way it goes. Now the AI of these Void Guns are pretty dumb, but it's not going to shoot your mind-controlled targets either. So keep that in mind. It's like, wait, why is my Void Gun not shooting that enemy? It's maybe because you mind-controlled them with the Qs, okay? And the timer for a Qs, the mind control timer is going to pause with a vast on time. So just be aware of that. You might have a bunch of mind control enemies walking around that you might not have wanted to keep it there. So, all right, that's Nourish. Pretty straightforward. Let's move on to a less straightforward build here. We're going to be going over the reprised Beekeeper build from, I think it was 2020. So when Helminth first got added, it's one of the first builds I made for Xaku. And it's to be based around Ivara's Cloaking Arrow. But we've actually taken a step further with some of the more recent changes. So we got the Zymos Pistol, and the Zymos Pistol creates a swarm of evil bees once you hit a headshot at an enemy. And the way you can do this is with Xaku, you can have an enemy in your gaze, which means they're basically invincible and stunned, and you can keep shooting them over and over again with the Zymos to get a bee swarm that just goes crazy. Additionally, the Zymos Pistol scales quite nicely with crit mods, and it basically double applies them on the bees. So with this build, you can basically have an infinite bee swarm and be safe. Our Helminth ability is Ivara's Cloaking Arrow, Quiver. So we use this and we shoot an enemy with the bee launcher, and it just goes pretty nuts. So we are going to unequip our Grimoire for this to put on the Zymos. And as far as the Zymos build, I don't even know what we have on here, honestly. Looks like it's not even a full build, so keep that in mind. You could min-max this more, but the big thing here is just to make sure that we have as much damage and crit as possible. So let's go ahead and give it a quick shot here in the sim. And I can technically unpause the enemies too. Yeah, but if you're using this build, don't use Buck. Don't use the invisible dog because you're gonna already be invisible, so you don't need Buck. You could bring the Panzer Profiler for this build instead. But yeah, let's go ahead and place the Cloaking Arrow so we're totally safe. Now we cast Gaze on an enemy. Keep in mind, with this build we don't have a 200% power strength immediately, so you need to madurai double dash for your 2-hundo. But once you do your 2-hundo double dash, you are basically set to go. So get your Zymos out, just keep firing. And they should all be dead, basically. Getting there. So yeah, just keep firing the Zymos, and you have a bee swarm that will assist you and go after enemies. 3.4 million. Not with any damage buff, so not too shabby. And of course, you can reapply the Cloaking Arrow. And you can technically play Xaku with this build a little bit more, normal if you wanted to. But yeah, this build is meant around using the Zymos. And yeah, so as far as changes here, we've got Comet Display on here, which is going to help us proc Archon Avenger because we won't be getting shot at. And additionally, since we're taking damage from Comet Display all the time, I want to try this out. I don't usually use it, but I've never used Xaku Augment, so I thought might as well. We got Vampiric Grasp. Grasp of Loke Augment. When a stolen weapon damages an enemy affected by the Lost, Gaze, or the Vast Untime, Xaku will heal for 25. So we're basically losing health from every kill to proc Avenger, but Vampiric Grasp is going to be constantly healing us, so it's like we're not even taking damage at all. So pretty good stuff there. Let's move on to the last two Xaku builds in this video. The old build, which is going to be the one from my Void Cascade guy, which totally still works, by the way, and the loot box opener build, basically. So this is one that I actually think is pretty important and good. So let's go ahead and show how you could use the loot box build in 2024. So things that changed on this build, I put on Energy Nexus, it's probably not needed, but the big thing here is going to be Greedy Pull, because we got the pull ability from Mag, and what Greedy Pull does, it pulls all the loot in that you are looking at to you. So what we can do with this build is we can go to plants like Deimos, wrong clip. We can go to plants like Deimos, and we can blow up all of the objects in Deimos with our massive fourth ability. So you're spamming your fourth ability on this build, kind of, because the hitbox on it is large, and it can also break objects. So when it breaks objects on Deimos, resources will come out, if you're lucky, and you just keep doing this over and over again. energy orbs will also drop from these too, and since we have that purple equilibrium Tau Shard, we get energy from health orbs, so it's great. So basically just go around, keep using Xaku's fourth, and just get all the loot pretty much. So this build is not good in like survivals or like in disruption or whatever. This build is meant for farming low-level loot missions, and I think it's still worth having in 2024. Could you use Limbo instead with his Cataclysm Fourth ability? Sure, but we're talking about Xaku Prime right now, not Limbo. Alright, so that is a build that doesn't really need much explanation. You basically just use your 4, use your 1, use your 4, use your 1. This is not meant for normal missions, it's meant for just like this kind of stuff, so yeah. And now as far as the stats on Xaku that got buffed, I didn't mention at the beginning of the video, but Xaku has a lot higher stats than Xaku normal, but the one that didn't get, basically everything got buffed besides the health. So higher sprint speed for Xaku Prime is pretty nice. Also more energy too, 21 more energy, ain't too shabby. Now for the final build, let's go ahead and show how the old build with no changes works on the current patch. So as I stated earlier, enemies got their HP buffed, but Xaku didn't get buffed alongside it. So how is the old build with lower power strength to fare against these Exo Gok stats? So let's go ahead and turn Buck's ability off so Buck's not going to kill everything. Yeah, by the way, here's Buck's build. I'll link a full video for him in the description. Yeah, we put on Assassin, or put on Elusive Posture so Buck doesn't kill everything and make everything look better than it actually is. And yeah, you could make a more specific build for, because we're not really using guns with this build. You could take off Tenacious Bond, you could take off Reinforced Bond if you wanted to. But for me, I like to keep them on because it's my normal Buck build. But yeah, you could make a fully min-max build for this. So here's the old Terrify build from like, what was it, like 2022 or 2023 or something like that. Basically for the Void Cascade guide. You go ahead and summon these enemies in. So Buck is going to still make you invisible, thankfully. So we grab their guns. We cast our fourth, and we use Terrify. So, before we get all the power strength stacked up, it's going to be 2 casts for Terrify. But as you can see, they're still armor stripped, and they're still going to eventually die. But the older builds ain't as strong as they used to be, guys. With Xaku, you need to jam a lot more strength nowadays than you used to, okay? So as far as, out of all these builds, what would I recommend to you in 2024 the most? I would probably recommend to you the Ophanim Eyes Jade Helmet build and the Roar build. I think the green Tau Shard, like Hydroid build was a experiment that didn't go the way I wanted it to. So, big power strength Roar to make your Void Guns buffed, and also Ophanim Eyes to have an alternate to your normal armor strip. For overall, like, you know, big damage, I'd say the Roar one's the best, because on this build, we have the Laser of Xaku to stun Demolist. We have the Roar of Rhino to buff our guns and our Void Guns, for that matter. And we also have technically full shield gate, even without catalyzing shield, because we got brief respite. And we have, well, if you use the Grimoire like I recommend, we have multiple auger mods in our tome to make it where we are getting even more shield gate. So between this and between brief respite, 230% of our energy spent is given to shields. So with the Vast Untime costing 155 energy on this build, we have enough to technically fully shield gate. So yeah, that's basically it, guys. Actually, no, it's not basically it. Let's talk about weapons with Xaku real quick before we call it. But yeah, as far as weapons I've been enjoying with Xaku recently, the Dara Incarnon's pretty fun. I've got a Blast build on here. As far as other ones, the Miter is actually quite nice with Xaku. Now, it can be kind of weird sometimes with Xaku's first ability, but thankfully right now we don't have the first ability on here, because the Void procs can like make the projectile go back into itself and stuff. So let's go ahead and show how that works with the Miter, because the Miter can actually pop Nullifier bubbles with the Augment, and they can also have very high damage against just normal enemies, too. Alright, so let's proc Xata's Whisper, and we'll cast Ophanim Eyes. Keep in mind, we are not using our Void Guns right now, because I'm trying to show you guys this. Okay, so as you see, there's a Void Bubble on her. We fire out the projectile. Look, it went back into the enemy that it already hit, so it can apply double hits of the Miter with Xata's Whisper, so pretty fun thing to try out. But keep in mind, there are other weapons too that are great with Xaku, like the Sporothrix, the Archoplasmor's kind of decent for double hits. The Dara Vandal has just been fun for me, personally, because we cast Xata's Whisper, it's a double hit of those Blast procs I was modding for. So as far as the Miter build, keep in mind, you can take off Neutralizing Justice if you're not fighting any Nullifiers, we're not fighting Nullifiers here, but it's a gas proc build. Pretty straightforward stuff right there. It's good against Acolytes too. As far as some other pistols and stuff, and weapons like that, we got the Okina for increased movement speed. You can use the Praetos for increased parkour. They're very, very similar. But I haven't used the Okina as much, so yeah. And here's the Okina build. I didn't even show it in the footage, but yeah, quickening to get some quick combo count. And actually, you could use the Seeing Red perk pretty nicely. So Seeing Red This perk right here is underrated for sure. Increasing combo chance on enemies affected by slash. You can get like instant 12x with this, with quickening and just a couple of melee attacks. So pretty fun stuff there, guys. I don't want to spend too much more time here, but yeah, instant 12x, that was so fast. So really good stuff there. Melee influence with the Okina is just good in general. So yeah, you can use the Okina normal, the Okina prime. Pretty good stuff there. Now for pistols, Grimoire, great. Epitaph, great. With the Epitaph, you can get easy viral procs. You want to buff your Void Gun some more. So yeah, the list goes on for weapons that are good here, guys. But hopefully you have fun with Xaku Prime. And also, yeah, since you watched this entire part of the video, there's a special setting with Xaku Prime now and Xaku Normal that you can actually change to full skeleton form if you'd like. So here are the new settings. This is the normal version. So we have normal Xaku Prime appearance, where you can go between skeleton and non-skeleton. Physical form only. As you can see, this is a very new feature. Placeholder description. And skeleton form only. So skeleton form only is what I've got right now. It makes it a little bit hard to tell when you're actually in the Vast Untimed portability, but it looks really cool to me, so I definitely want to keep this on here. So guys, let me know in the description or in the comments which builds you like the most today. I think out of all of them, I think my favorite is the Roar and the Ophanim Eyes, but I could definitely see someone liking the Loot Box build more, or maybe the Beekeeper build more. But either way, guys, these two are the ones I'd recommend to you, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Peace.